thought, I like my turntable, but what I'd really like is a turntable I can airlift over the Iron Curtain. Well, me neither, but someone did. Hi, I'm Florencia Pierri, and I'm the curator of the Sarnoff Collection, and I'm here to ask, what is this thing? In 1954, David Sarnoff, then the chairman of the board of Radio Corporation of America, had an idea. More than an idea, he had a plan for what he called a program for a political offensive against world communism. This was at the height of the Cold War, and Sarnoff, who had emigrated from the Russian Empire as a child, had no love for that particular part of the world and still less for its political system. Most of the plan followed a pretty standard trajectory for what President Eisenhower would later call the military-industrial complex. Sarnoff urged that the U.S., quote, maintain our lead and accelerate the tempo of progress in everything from nuclear weapons to chemical warfare, but the crux of his program to defeat communism relied on what he thought RCA did best: electronic know-how. His comprehensive plan included mobile, big-screen color TV sets deployed to sites near the Iron Curtain, the development of small, portable shortwave radios pre-tuned to pick up American signals, and stronger broadcasting facilities to overcome Soviet jammers. But there was one part of what he grandiloquently called the Sarnoff Plan that was truly bonkers. It's so crazy that I think you need a more sober voice than mine to describe it.
Getting back to the Sarnoff Plan, actually, it's a method of communicating with the people behind the Iron Curtain, a method which we might say cannot be jammed. The principal elements are to drop small, hand-operated plastic record players, which can be produced for less than 50 cents apiece, and also drop plastic records bearing news and information. Thus, the people can play these and listen to them secretly. And there, roughly, is the Sarnoff Plan.
That's a heck of a plan, David Sarnoff. That was the announcer for the 1955 winter meeting of the American Institute of Electrical Engineers. Sarnoff was the keynote speaker, and the announcer introduced him with that note about the crowning jewel of the Sarnoff Plan, the propaganda phonograph. It seemed so unnecessary and so ill-conceived. I mean, his plan was to drop boxes of phonographs out of the sky. What if they hit someone? And while on its face the idea is just so ludicrous, I do have to admit there were some good points about it. The idea was that this hand-cranked device would reach people who didn't have an electric supply, who didn't have batteries or vacuum tubes, or any of the other electrical contraptions that powered the electronic devices of the era. And it's also going to be useful for people who are illiterate. The U.S. had actually already begun a campaign that sent leaflet-laden balloons towards communist regions, but leaflets are only useful if your target audience can read them. Listening, on the other hand, could reach a much broader audience. And it was also thought to be a symbol of goodwill. Now anyone who found one of these doohickeys lying on the ground not only had some sweet, sweet propaganda records to listen to, they also now had the means to listen to any other record they might have access to. Amazingly as it might sound, RCA actually prototyped a plastic phonograph paired with a cardboard record, the sort of thing that already existed as a novelty that could sometimes be cut out of, for example, cereal boxes. And the whole kit, the phonograph, the paper record, it could be manufactured super cheaply. Promotional materials boasted that they could be made for 50 cents. That was less than the cost of a bottle of Coca-Cola. The prototype was officially unveiled in November of 1955 at a meeting of the Overseas Press Club of America. And here we've got a photo of David Sarnoff playing with one, though his companions look less than convinced. The invention garnered a great deal of publicity in the following few months. It was featured in the November 21st issue of Life magazine, which prominently displayed a photo of a young boy operating the device at the press club. And that shared a spread with the news that actor Rock Hudson was getting married, so clearly the phonograph was important news. This propaganda phonograph showed up in a few other publications. It was in Popular Science in the end of 1955 and in Popular Mechanics in 1956. And it did seem to capture the imagination. Even President Eisenhower, when he was shown the getup, couldn't resist spinning a record. Or at least so said David Sarnoff, who was a reliably unreliable narrator. So I take that story with a grain of salt. Nevertheless, RCA was all in for this plan. They created propaganda discs in various foreign languages to be dropped in Burma, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, and elsewhere. And there was even interest from other sectors. Museums looked into using a device like that to provide self-guided tours to visitors. Public health officials wondered if it could be used to bring medical information to people across the world in their native languages. And even a hunter inquired about the possibility of having RCA Victor record duck calls on a disc so he could use this hand-cranked phonograph while shooting ducks. In his memorandum to the U.S. government about the propaganda phonograph, Sarnoff argued that countermeasures to combat what he saw as the threat of communism had to, at times, be unconventional. However, the propaganda phonograph proved to be a bit too unconventional. Although the United States Information Agency did express a vague interest, in the end, the device never went beyond the prototype stage. And that is the history of the propaganda phonograph. Thanks for listening, and if you'd like to hear more crazy stories from the history of technology, click subscribe below, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at TCNJ Sarnoff.